Good morning. Good morning. I am Councilmember Zachary Parker, and I am thrilled to welcome you all here today for this street sign unveiling for Ward 5's very first Councilmember, William Spaulding. Let's give it up in the legacy and memory of William Spaulding. We have a number of exciting guests. I want to start by acknowledging individuals on the program, some of whom are here, some of whom are en route. There are many meetings and hearings today, and so people are in transition. We are thrilled to welcome and be joined by our mayor, Muriel Bowser. We are also planning to be joined by at-large Councilmember Anita Bonds. I have the privilege of having several of my predecessors here, former Ward 5 Councilmember Vincent Orange, as well as former Ward 5 Councilmember Harry Thomas Jr. I am also thrilled to welcome to the mic during today's program ANC Commissioner for 5B01, Edward Borrego. And we will have members of the Spaulding family sharing. In no particular order, we have Mayo Spaulding, Angeline Spaulding Flowers, Amelia Garrido, Damian Garrido, Dr. Emanuel Yeoman, and Deirdre Spaulding Yeoman. I also want to acknowledge some very special guests that we have with us today. We have students from the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School, which is right here behind us. And we will have one of Sojourner Truth's very own, London Nichols, reading the bio of William Spaulding, and I hear we're in for a treat. We are also joined by students from the Friendship Public Charter School Woodridge campus, and they were teaching me how to do the Woodridge sign. We are thrilled to have you all with us as well. I would be remiss if I did not also acknowledge members of our district government and leaders from our various agencies. I see many of you. I'm not going to call you by name, but if you could wave your hand so people can acknowledge you. I see a director from DDOT. I saw the president of UDC and many others. Thank you all for joining us. And I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the many Ward 5 stalwart leaders on whose shoulders we all stand on. So if you have been a pillar of this community, like William Spaulding, if you could raise your hand. I see Tim Thomas and Jeanette Mobley and Rip Preston. I'm not going to start calling names. You get in trouble. Shirley Riven Smith. Okay, I'm going to keep calling names. Bob King. Okay, I'm going to stop. But thank you all for joining. I also want to acknowledge and thank members of my team who are here that played a significant role in putting today's program together. And while we will not be joined by former Ward 5 council member, now at-large council member Kenyon McDuffie, I do want to acknowledge members of his team and acknowledge that we had a conversation. And the only reason why he is not here today is because he has a hearing scheduled for this very moment, and he was not able to be here, but he did send his regards, and he too is joining in this celebration. With that, how did we get to this point? Last February, in honor of Black History Month, I introduced 10 bills honoring 10 Black leaders with ties to Ward 5 in honor of Black History Month. And chief among them was William Spaulding, Ward 5's very first council member following Home Rule. And the reason for those bills was to put a stake in the ground, to serve as a remembrance of the leaders who are many of whom are no longer with us, or actually none of them who are no longer with us, but whose memories we need to remember and we all cherish. William Spaulding leaves a tremendous legacy, and as I was thinking about what that word means for me, it is something that you leave for the betterment of others that lives well beyond you. And so when I think of William Spaulding's legacy, I think of how he helped shepherd this, at that time, infant government following Home Rule, as well as pave the way for UDC and many other major milestones. And we'll hear more about this remarkable man. But I could not be more honored to honor William Spaulding in this significant way. I am going to serve as our MC for today's program. We are still, as I understand it, waiting on our mayor to join us, as well as Councilmember Bond. So I'm going to ask former Ward 5 Councilmember Vincent Orange to join us for brief remarks and sharing in the legacy of William Spaulding. Please welcome him.
Well, good morning. Isn't this a beautiful day the Lord has made for us? Made for us to have this great celebration, the William Spaulding Way Street Designation Ceremony. And I'm just honored and pleased to be here today with all of you to share in this great occasion. The Honorable Dr. William Riley Spaulding is my dear fraternity brother, our fraternity brother. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And our motto is manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind. And clearly, Dr. Spaulding espoused this each and every day of his life. And even with him going home to glory, he continues to inspire us for that. Dr. Spaulding is a descendant of a family of scholars. And it continues with his daughters, scholars. He was a engineer, professor, and public servant. And he made us all proud. Clearly, he was the first Ward 5 elected council member. And I would just like to say and urge this upon my brother, my dear Alpha brother, manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind, to consider introducing legislation, something with the title Dr. William Riley Spaulding, University of District of Columbia, tuition-free institution for DC residents. And I think that will really go a long way to memorialize him, and not only him, but also his wife, Dolores. She was also an educator. It's been she taught in, I believe, in Prince George's County, taught here at Nanny Helen Burroughs, and she was also an adjunct professor at the University of District of Columbia. So this family has roots in education, and it would be great to send all DC residents that would like to the University of the District of Columbia tuition free. And it only costs $25 million, and we're now almost a $20 billion organization. So if we can't spend that on our youth, because they always say, if you touch a rock, you touch the past. If you touch flowers, you touch the present. But if you touch the youth, you touch the future. And that should be our job, to touch the future in honor of Dr. Spaulding. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here with you. I would be remiss if I didn't say I was joined here by my wife, Gwendolyn Evans Orange, and she is also an educator. So she's pushing education as well. So thank you all so much. Greatly appreciate it. Enjoy this beautiful day that the Lord has made for us. Thank you.
I am thrilled to see that we are now joined by our mayor, Muriel Bowser. Let's give it up for her. We will hear from her in just one moment, but I do want to also call up former Ward 5 Councilmember Harry Thomas Jr. to provide remarks in the memory of William Spaulding.
Well, you know, this is, first of all, good morning. Good morning. And also giving honor to God and praise and for a wonderful, beautiful day. And also just to be here on my paper route. And I know they don't do that no more, right? But not only was I an ANC in this community, but this was my paper route. And it is very honorable that I'm here with this council member. And I say that because yesterday we were at the 21st Street Block Party. And I said, you are the right council member at the right time, because you're remembering our past, our history, and our present. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand that history has to be practiced, right? Because if we don't honor those who came before us, then what is the purpose? There was a legacy, and I will say this council member, William Spaulding, him and his family were second to none. And I'm saying honor our history because when you think about politics in that era, whether it was with my father, Harry Thomas Sr., whether it was with the civic associations, whether it was with people like Bruce, who ran for city council and was the council member's chief of staff, whether it was with Brian Flowers and of course, Deidre, who served on the ANC. We all served on the ANC together. Or whether it's with me being a schoolmate of Michelle's, who we dearly loved each other. It didn't matter if our parents ran against each other. We were family, and we've always been family. Deirdre had the good fortune to marry another fraternity brother, and so I'm not going to get into that with the council members who are here, because they all end up in a mega chapter, but that's okay. I tell them that all the time. But I know that Dolores is smiling with her beloved husband. Mr. Spaulding wasn't just a council member. He worked at Phelps, he taught, he did things in our community. On my paper route, if I got the numbers wrong, he corrected me and made sure my mathematics was right, you know, because we had to collect, and, you know, he made sure that I understood the tools of life. And so when I stand here on this corner in our community and in our neighborhood, and we're glad to be here with Mayor Bowser because she knows that even her dad served with our council member on the ANC. That's the community we had. That's what this council member is bringing to us. That's why I'm standing here today, not just because of William Spaulding, but because of the history that's being shared and his family legacy. You look here and you see his grandchildren. You look back in the back and we see one of the Corleys who is here, whose mother was a school board member. We look over there with Mark Jones, who was a school board member, and we look at who people were that actually served with this man and worked with this man and made a difference in our community. So we're here today honoring a legend, not just a council member. One who loved this community, who worked in civic duties. And as my good friend Bob told me, I think it was 17 of them that tried to take on the council member, and he beat them hands down in a landslide in an election, right? We don't have those kind of elections no more. Am I lying, Bob? It was 17 of y'all. Y'all couldn't even be the last man standing because William Spaulding was a giant. So God bless you all. Thank you for having us here today. And we appreciate this honor and this privilege to be on this corner at this place at this time. Spaulding family, we miss them, but we love them. God bless you all. Thank you.
We're going to call up our mayor next, but I do want to just give a little bit of history, especially for our young people. The reason why we're here on Randolph Street and have this street unveiling or street sign unveiling is because that is where the council member lived. And normally we designate one block or so, but we made a point to offer distinction in offering, I believe, 3 to 5 blocks that bear the name of William Spaulding, giving the significance of his leadership for this community. And just for the record, when I came up with this idea to introduce these bills to honor prominent leaders with ties to Ward 5, I went to some trusted neighbors. I called up Bob King, and he said, well, that's funny you say you want to honor William Spaulding because we have a list of names that we too want to recognize and honor, and William Spaulding is on that list. I then went to one of my favorite neighbors, Joe Bowser, at the time, and I sat with him and his wife, Joan Bowser. And Joe Bowser fashion, he applauded the recognition for William Spaulding, but he said, you need to do more. You need to do more, and we all miss him dearly. And I just want to, again, cherish his memory and thank the mayor for leading and carrying on his legacy. So with that, let's give it all up for our mayor, Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is great to be home, great to be in Ward 5, and great to be here with the Spaulding family. In the Ward 4 family, Councilmember Parker, council members from Ward 5 who have already spoken. Good morning. I do rise, of course, to speak on behalf of 700,000 Washingtonians, but indeed to speak on behalf of my own family. I see my brother Marvin here. I want to speak on behalf of my mom as well, and certainly my father, who absolutely adored Mr. Spaulding, and he was a great supporter of his. Mr. Spaulding, of course, was my council member as well, my very first council member, and he showed us all how to do it. He was a renowned educator, and I see we've been joined by President Maurice Eddington of the University of the District of Columbia. Please acknowledge Mr. Eddington for being here. Your leadership at UDC is going to take us a long way, and we're grateful for it. And Mr. Spaulding, of course, was among very distinguished Washingtonians who formed the first council of the District of Columbia. And as we've heard Vice President Harris say many times, it's good to be the first, but just make sure you aren't the last. And that very first council really was an example for Washingtonians. Another thing that we heard at the Democratic Convention of educated, smart, talented people that happen to be Black and happen to start us on our journey towards home rule. What they recognized is their responsibility was great to take us from the very undemocratic 3-commissioner rule in Washington and take us and put us on a road to self-determination. Now, I'm willing to bet that those first council members thought that these 51 years later, we would have completed that road to self-determination, but our work remains. And so when we think about acknowledging these great people in our history, determined, educated, many like Mr. Spaulding that followed a path that many Washingtonians have followed, from North Carolina, from the Tar Heel state. Any other Tar Heels here? Got some Tar Heels here? To come to Washington, D.C. for good jobs, great opportunity, and to build futures for not only their families, but generations of Washingtonians. We owe them a great debt, don't we? We owe them a great debt, but we honor that sacrifice that the Spauldings and so many others have made by doing everything that we can to complete our road to self-determination. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling good about it. We've done the work, haven't we, DC? And now it's time for the nation to do the work. And we have a job, a Black job, if you will, on November the 5th. And on November the 6th, we have another job, and that's to deliver the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris, the pathway to statehood for Washington, D.C. So we're going to work together. We're going to work with the Council of the District of Columbia, work with the Attorney General, work with our Congresswoman to make sure we're doing exactly that. But every day in Washington, we have to remember and thank the great men and women who helped us get here. And I know my father would be the loudest one talking about, at the time during all the campaigns, they said William Bill Spaulding, right? It was William Bill Spaulding. And to us, he was Mr. Spaulding. And to Ward 5, he was just a leader that made us all feel good about being Ward 5 residents. And so I want to say thank you, Mr. Spaulding. And this is just a small token of our appreciation for what you did for us. Thank you, everybody.
Let's say it again. Thank you, Mr. Spaulding. Next, we will have the reading of Dr. Spaulding's bio, read by London Nichols from the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School.
Good morning. William Ridley Spaulding was born June 15, 1924 in Hallsborough, North Carolina. At 16, he moved to the District of Columbia to attend Howard University's School of Engineering and Architecture. He graduated in 1947 with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. After graduation, William R. Spaulding worked as an educator in the district's public schools from 1947 to 1952, and on Howard's faculty from 1950 to 1960, while also working as an engineer at the National Security Agency. While teaching at Howard University, he met Dolores Hinton, a music education student, and they were married on August 27, 1954. The couple later became the parents of 3 daughters, Deidre, Michelle, and Angeline. William and Dolores Spaulding created many community-based projects together to serve the residents of the District of Columbia. In the 1960s, the couple produced and directed a television show on WOOC TV Channel 14 featuring local talent. William R. Spaulding taught the veterans programs at Phelps, Bell, and Armstrong high schools, while also coaching the school basketball and baseball teams. After the Home Rule Act was signed in 1973, Spaulding left his position at the National Security Agency and in 1974 was elected as one of the first members of the Council of the District of Columbia, where he served 3 terms representing the residents of Ward 5. While serving on the council from 1975 to 1987, Spaulding has been credited with legislation consolidating the D.C. Teachers College, Federal City College, and Washington Technical Institute into the University of the District of Columbia. He also served as the chairman of the Committee on Education and later the Committee on Government Operations. In 1978, William Spaulding produced Metro Talent Search, the district's most well-known local talent show. He became an instructor at the University of the District of Columbia in 1980. William R. Spaulding actively worked with returning citizens to connect them to work and resources, and following his time on the council, he received an award from the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency. Additionally, he taught mathematics at UDC from 1986 to 1998. During the course of his life, William R. Spaulding served in various civic leadership positions, including as an active member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, president of the John Burroughs School Parent-Teacher Association, president of the Area 3A Council of the Parent-Teacher Association, vice president of the D.C. Congress of Parent-Teacher Associations, president of the Woodridge Civic Association, financial secretary for the D.C. Federation of Civic Associations, advisor for the College Achievement Module Program at the District of Columbia Teachers College, secretary of the Fort Lincoln Advisory Committee, and chair of the Fort Lincoln Foundation. He also served on the boards of the Kidney Foundation, the American Heart Association, the Saturday College, and the Girl Scout Council of the nation's capital. He was honored as an outstanding alumnus by Howard's Engineering School, and in 2014, UDC awarded him the Doctor of Humane Letters. The William Spaulding Recognition Resolution of 1996 put it best when it proclaimed that William R. Spaulding exemplified the epitome of what every neighbor should strive to emulate, in recognition of his many years of service to the District of Columbia. William R. Spaulding passed away on November 1, 2021 at the age of 97 and leaves behind a tremendous legacy of public service and leadership. Thank you.
Amazing job, London. I think we may see London in the Wilson building in future years serving as council member. No, thank you for that. That was great. We couldn't have this program giving Dr. Spaulding's rich contributions to education and not have young people be a part of the program. And so again, we want to thank students from Sojourner Truth and Friendship for joining us. And I heard something very interesting. Dr. Spaulding was the chair of the Education Committee on the council. So one way you can honor the rich history of William Spaulding is telling our chairman that we need an education committee back on the council. I'll leave it there. We are now going to call up members of the family, and I'm going to ask that you all come together, if that is okay. We're going to first hear from Romeo Spaulding, who is the 4th president of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. We will also be joined by Angeline Spaulding Flowers, Amelia Garrido, Damian Garrido, Dr. Emanuel Yeoman, and Deidre Spaulding Yeoman. If you all could come, and in that order, provide remarks in memory of your loved one.
Good morning. I'm standing here looking at this crowd, and I have memory that a lot of them probably don't know. I think I can remember when most of them were born, the younger ones. But for Councilmember Spaulding, I just remember a lot about him. But before I get started, to our Honorable Mayor, Muriel Bowser, to our Councilmember Parker, to the other distinguished, not only council members, but the leaders here, all of the cousins of the family and all of the neighbors in the community, and especially for the youth that are here with us today, good morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of our family organization, which is called the Benjamin Edith Spaulding Descendants Association, and we are headed by Dr. Milton Campbell, and our headquarters in Durham, North Carolina. Most of us here, they were talking about North Carolina being Tar Heels. We can break it down. We're from Columbus County, North Carolina, Whiteville, North Carolina, and Hallsborough, North Carolina. Anybody know anything about those places? But it's interesting, just to give you a little history, when you say Whiteville, most people mischaracterize it because they wonder how in the world could we be from a place called Whiteville. But what they didn't know was that the White family was our cousin. Just to share with you, the last member of Congress that moved out of the Congress that was railroaded out was George Henry White, who was one of our cousins. He was the one that put on the legislation on Capitol Hill about the anti-lynching, and not to mention the other things dealing with civil rights. When they railroaded him out of Congress, he left here and went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he established the first black bank, the first black insurance company, and established a land grant company. When he bought 2,000 some acres in southeastern New Jersey, and incorporated it and named it as a city. The city is still there. It's called Whitesboro, New Jersey. Anybody ever heard of it? Whitesboro, New Jersey. Okay, and Whitesboro was a place where they tried to recreate what was happening in Columbus County, North Carolina, where our cousins came through, and they went through Whitesboro, and they bridged out into Philadelphia, into New Jersey, up into New York, up into Connecticut. And those individuals that you hear, some of them, that's our track getting into that area. Just to give you a little bit of history about the family. For William Spaulding, he came out of Hallsborough, and he was doing things that we didn't know what it was, because we didn't understand, the things that he was talking about. He was the person that was responsible for me coming out of there, coming to Washington, D.C., but to Howard University. And I just want to share with some things about the vision of the man. When he talked with him, no matter whether it was a senior or a middle age or youth, his mind was always working. I can remember back in 1957, what it was, we were riding on Bladensburg Road, and he started talking about something about Fort Lincoln, Newtown. It was a boys' club then, where they had boys incarcerated. And then he was talking about the division there. At Howard University, he was dealing with things I didn't know about, and it was young individuals that he was working with, and they were dealing with engineering project, and that project was putting together the first radio station, and that radio station, they did get together, and they got 1 hour to, approved to go on that, but that's the forerunner of WHUR. That's where he was. So he came from there and did dealing with the television area. Now that's something totally new, because we were not into that industry very well, not at all. And when he put together the WOK, the Mahalia Jackson Sings, I'm the one that he came and got and said, you can do it. I want you to be my moderator and MC for the program. I had never done anything like that. That's the way he was. He could see something in you and get you to get engaged. From that, just to share with you the impact of what he was doing, just that, I ended up working for the District of Columbia Fire and Emergency Services Department. I worked this area for 18 years. There was a lot of things that was happening, but he looked at it and saw the plight of what needed to happen within the public safety, and he got me involved in doing things. But I got involved with them, and we organized what was called the Progressive Firefighter Association in Washington, D.C., but most people didn't know. He was behind the scenes saying, look, you need to do this, you need to do that. But he sat there with Dave Clark and Wilhelmina Rolark and others on the council and went through a thing where we put together, and working with them, we had to get the legislature to establish the first cadet program in the country. for firefighters going into that. But also what he did was he navigated and constructed in such a way that the young people who wanted to go into that service could get a free college tuition at the University of District of Columbia. This is where his thinking was, because what he was doing was trying to bridge the disconnect between someone being prepared coming out of school, going into college, or coming out of college, going into the world of work, which are the things that we're still working on today. I have a lot of our cousins here that are in all different fields, but in the Fire Service of America, what a lot of people didn't realize, you're just not a firefighter or dealing with EMS, call it emergency service. You were touching base with everything, because what he did with us as the Progressive Firefighter Association, he got us engaged into the schools in the District of Columbia. We actually adopted schools, went out and did things and brought things into the school system, and we worked with the science teachers and all those dealing with things, volunteering to do. We volunteered to do that, to make a difference. And there were things that happened because of what he was doing, what he planted, not only in me to do, to impact our seniors, impact our community, but impact our nation as we worked in that particular profession. And we have here today, we have Robert Pearson, who is the Southeast Regional Director of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, 9 states, still working, trying to do things. Gary Wiggins was here, who is out of Ward 5, both of them live in Ward 5, who is the president now of the Progressive Firefighter Association of Washington, D.C. And I just wanted to say this, but we have one other thing I just wanted to say to you. There's one young lady who's here in Ward 5, did a rescue and saved a young person's life. And this young lady was recognized by that, and she was the first woman in the whole United States of America to receive a Medal of Valor in fire service. The first one. She's back there. Her name is Tawana Robinson. She's part of us. But these are the kind of things that was happening because of the message that the Councilmember William Spaulding planted into us. Now, some of the things that I did working with him, you didn't know. I was his first babysitter. I babysitted these young ladies here and worked with that. He had you doing all kinds of things. Then he had built an airplane. He took me down to Piscataway. I'd never been in one. I looked at this thing. He was working on it. He said, "Come on, let's go for a flight." I'm looking at this thing, and I said, "You want to get in this thing?" And he said, "Yeah." But he got me involved in it and in flying. And the people that was there that had trained him was the Tuskegee Airmen. So that's how I got involved with Tuskegee Airmen and flying. So I'm just sharing with you the kinds of things that he would energize people as he impacted with people to get involved in. And someone was talking about running with all of these people in Ward 5 when he ran. You know why he won? Because he had the black firefighters with him. You know, we did. And I said we have I guess impacted political processes across this country. Remember going on Capitol Hill, just like James Clyburn, who was up there now, we were down in Columbia, South Carolina, getting him started. I can go on John Lewis, we were there to get him started. But that was what we were doing, trying to make a difference in our community, with our people, with our youth in the schools. But all of that came from this man who would sit there and pour into my head, sitting on this porch, riding in this car, whatever it was. He did not give you an opportunity to breathe other than he was pouring into you what it was that he wanted you to do. And you look at it and he said, "You can do it." And he had that little smile that he'd give you. But I want to thank him for what he's done. I want to thank his wife, who I knew very well. I want to thank his children, Angela, Michelle, and I remember, and Deirdre, for what they have been able to do and what they're still doing, carrying out the legacy of the Spaulding, and also more specifically their father, and impacting not only people in this city and in this ward, but in this nation. I was just on the phone with Angela. She's out of the country in El Salvador, trying to get back here for this thing of this morning. But those are the kinds of things that are happening, and guess what? It's coming out of the University District of Columbia, dealing with historical black colleges, and there are so many things I would just love to talk to you about to make an impact on what we should be doing, how we should be doing it, and going the other. But this, Councilmember Parker, is a beginning. I thank you for it. I really appreciate your leadership, and I want to thank Muriel Bowser for your leadership. And thank all of you in the community for your support for the Spaulding family, and thank all of my cousins. Let me see, all of my cousins, raise your hand. There's a whole bunch of them. all out there. Thank all of you all for coming out today, and I pray that God will bless you, and God will bless you as we go for this. And guess what? We will have Kamala Harris as our next president. All right. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Angeline Spaulding Flowers. I'm my parents' oldest daughter. And actually, so much has been said, I'm really not going to talk long. I do want to thank Councilmember Parker for his efforts in getting the street designation. I want to thank all the council members and former council members who are here. You know, as has been said, Ward 5 we weren't just a community, we were family. You know, family members might argue with each other, but we're family and we always had each other's back. One of the things that was very important to my father was the University of the District of Columbia. And as I said, I'm my parents' child. They were educators. So I'm going to speak to the students from Sojourner Truth School that are here. The University of the District of Columbia is the nation's only urban public land grant university. It has programs that don't exist in other places because we focus our efforts on the needs of urban communities, on minority communities. I'd like to acknowledge the university president, Dr. Eddington, my boss. And I'm going to teach you our saying, if Dr. Eddington will help me. I'm going to say, what's the word? And everybody's going to yell, Firebirds. You got it? Okay. What's the word?
Firebird.
What's the word?
Firebird.
What's the word?
Firebird.
Great. Okay, so now I've got future Firebirds out there. You know, I'm just going to conclude by remarking that I see my father's legacy everywhere. You know, I talk to people and they say he helped me get my first job. I see it at Fort Lincoln. I see it in this community. And so what it reminds me is that we all stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And it's our responsibility, no matter the cost, to blaze a path forward for the next generations. Thank you.
Good morning. William Spaulding was an astounding man. He was also my great-grandfather. He lived to be a very kind person. In his memory, I'm going to be reading The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. When day comes, we ask ourselves, when can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl, descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president, only to find herself fighting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine. But this doesn't mean we're striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose. To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide, because we know to put our future first, we must put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so that we can reach our arms out to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in blade. But in all bridges that we've made, that is a promised glade. The hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delay in democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded, but while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders have become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy, and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left, with every breath from our bronze-pounded chests. We will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. In every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people, diverse and dutiful, will emerge battered but beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Ready?
Take a deep breath.
You want me to stay up here with you? Okay, you want to change the line? Okay, just start there.
Out of our black night,
That sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. Huh?
He changed his mind.
All right. Well, that was my great niece and my great nephew, future doctors, future lawyers. My name is Dr. Emanuel Yeoman. Dr. William Ridley Spaulding is my father-in-law, but I often called him Dad. Him and my father and mother grew up as children together in a small town called Hallsboro, North Carolina. Let me take a moment. Mr. Spaulding has been in my life since I was born. I had no other reason to become great because I was surrounded by great men. Joe Bowser was my coach. I rode to school with Marion. I knew if Marion or Marvin was going to be the mayor of this city as a child. The Corleys, the Harrises, the Oranges. I'm looking around at all my mentors, Marshall. I'm looking at people who made me who I am. These great men accomplished so much together that even every kid that they coached, they had a 95.5% graduation rate from college. When I got my doctorate, Mr. Bowser called me and congratulated me. He kept in touch with all the kids. Mr. Spaulding used to ride by and see us playing on a field on Gallatin Street. Me and Harry playing football with a bunch of our friends. Came up to us and asked us, you know, guys, would you like to have organized sports? Would you like a recreation center built near here? And of course, we as kids said yes. But he would stop by once a week to watch us play on that field. And that meant so much to us. As a council member, wanted to see and stay in touch with us to make us great. Dr. Eddington, of course, is a friend. He's the president of the university. He's my boss. So I get some kudos for that, Doc, right? And so it's just an amazing legacy. Let me tell you, Dr. Spaulding was a thinker, and I always called him Dr. Ridley by his middle name, which would bring this. If you knew him, he had this smirk. He might not have smiled, might not have laughed, but he was always thinking. I'll give you one instance. We were in Hallsborough, North Carolina, and at 91, he used to help me drive down to Hallsborough, North Carolina. We dropped Deirdre off and Dolores off at the house. Me and him, we're going to get food. We go to Walmart, get food. We leave there, and we're crossing a highway that was 2 lanes of traffic going that way, a little medium, 2 lanes of traffic coming back this way. So, and it was a stop sign. We leave to cross one side of the highway successfully. On the other side, a tractor trailer is barreling down at us. And so I say, Dad, the tractor trailer hit the gas. He hits the brake. And so he turns and looks, and I said, yeah, hit the gas, hit the gas, hit the gas. He takes off. We make it to Lowe's. He pulls over, and he says, man, we almost lost our life. I said, yeah, we almost did. The funny part about it is, 6 months later, they had a stoplight. He was always thinking about others, and he was responsible for getting a stoplight right there, 600 and something miles away from D.C. There's one thing about D.C., and Muriel will attest to this. D.C. is the nation's capital. We are the leader of the nation. The nation follows us. And I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for everything that you do, everything that your team does. I want to thank you, council member, for everything that you've done and everything that your team has done. We are moving forward and not backwards. We will become the 51 state. That's for certain, and that's for sure. I'm going to leave my time to my wife, my lovely wife.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to mention that following the completion of the ceremony, we're inviting everyone to join us in the backyard at 1905 Randolph Street, where we'll have a reception. So please join us when everything is completed. I am going to go ahead and share the poem that my great-nephew, Damien, picked out. Okay, Damien, I'm going to share your poem with everybody. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Thank you, Damien, for bringing that to this ceremony. I'm the youngest daughter of William and Dolores Spaulding, and I saw a lot of changes coming about from the time I was a little girl. I was the one that most people would see with my father out and about in the community and at the different community meetings. And I served with Mr. Bowser on the ANC back in the early 80s. Okay, time passes, people grow up. Our current mayor, she becomes an ANC commissioner, just like her dad. And then she has ascended. And I know my father was always proud to see that, and the native Washingtonian, and then someone following in their father's footsteps and doing great things for the city. So thank you. I'm going to share a couple of quotes that resonate with me about my father. The first is from Bob Marley. The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. From George Bernard Shaw, a gentleman is one who puts more into the world than he takes out. Martin Luther King Jr. Being a good man means having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even if it means standing alone. From Mark Twain. Being a good man means having integrity and doing what is right, even when no one is watching. And from Nelson Mandela. A leader is like a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, letting the most nimble go out ahead, whereupon the others follow, not realizing that all along they are being directed from behind. Thank you, everyone who made this day possible for the ceremony of the unveiling of William R. Spaulding Way. Thank you.
We're just about done. I will say the reciting of Invictus brought back flashbacks. But I want to thank the family for sharing your loved one with us and the district and for being here. I do want to call up the commissioner, ANC commissioner from 5B01, Edward Borrego, and then following that we will have the unveiling of the street sign. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. You know, listening to all of the memories of William Spaulding, it really got me thinking that the most appropriate thing for me to say is thank you. I really appreciate learning more about this man, learning more about the neighborhood, his contributions, which are numerous. You know, last year, so this is my first term as the Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner, representing the 2,000 residents of this area. Miss Deidre Spaulding Yeoman reached out to me, inviting me to submit testimony on the council member's bill. And at the time I was overseas, so it was a little technically tricky, and so I was very glad that she helped. But ever since then, I've learned more and more about William Spaulding. And I think that's why it's fantastic that this historic designation is going up. So that way people who may not know ask questions. They start learning. They find out more about this great individual. So once again, I really thank all of you for sharing so much with me and everyone that's here. And I'm definitely going to remember many of the stories and things that I've heard here today, which I will cherish. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, now it's for the moment we've all been waiting for.
Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2,